Hi, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case, and also welcome to the Idaho 4 case. Two lots of different true crime cases we're going to be looking at tonight. Welcome if you are currently here in the live premiere, I appreciate it. Also, a key shout out to ZX0 as well as Moon's mom from last night because they gifted out memberships to different people. Hopefully those were able to retrieve and receive those gifted memberships. I know Indiana had a bit of a difficult time. Maybe it might fix eventually. But as for anyone else in the background that was gifted one, hopefully they were able to successfully receive it. And once again, just in general, shout out to ZX0 and Moon's mum. It's very good of them. And it's time to kick things off. As we do go along throughout this video, be sure to make use of the live chat on the right hand side of the screen. Share your thoughts, opinions and reactions, both on the Dylan Rounds case and on the Idaho 4 case, right? I think the structure today, we'll look at Dylan Rounds first of all, considering that's what we've always done and what we've always focused on. And then later on, we can slowly start to transition into the Idaho 4 case. I am aware there'll be people that are probably fully aware and have quite a bit of knowledge behind Idaho 4, that's fine. If you do want to fill in the gaps as we do go on in this video, feel free. Maybe if people do have questions, you can answer them, right? It can work out. I think it's all under control. If any corrections do need to be made, feel free to do that. That's welcome. And that's just like how we go. Take in mind, I've not looked at the Idaho 4 case that deeply, but the recent articles are quite interesting, and one of them is very relevant and can have some applications to the Dylan Rounds case and Brenner based off a certain situation, the scenario. So we definitely need to take a look at that, and it'll probably help my understanding as well with what I've been talking about recently in the Dylan Rounds case. Now, if you haven't already, be sure to check out my previous videos. I'll provide a link down below in the pinned comment section so you can watch it, as well as some additional links if you wish to visit them, right? I think what we'll do straight away is look back at the comments of the previous video, answer any questions, see if there's additional interesting information, go from there. We'll do that so it allows people to join on in time and not be too late to this premiere. Hopefully, a fair few people are present tonight to witness this hybrid video, and maybe you might learn something new. So I think we get right into the comments, and then once we're done with that, then we can get into this new Dylan Rounds article and analyze that. All right. What I'll just do very quickly is set it to the newest and we can work our way up. Linda, Warlike Raf, I read this today, dog is beautiful. That's referencing what we were talking about yesterday with the canine dogs involved recently with searching for Dylan Rounds and other missing people in between, all different types of breeds included. What does Indiana have to say? Trivia question. When did Warlike Raf become obsessed with his things? Ever since he was a nipper. Izzy, lol. Is Izzy mean easy, but spelt differently in like a degenerative way? I don't know. But I can answer that question, but if people want to guess themselves, I don't think there'll be any point because I would have answered already by them. But I guess I've made reference to them way back in the past. Not as consistent as I do now. Did anyone pick up on them in the past? No. Watch of Crazy was probably the first person ever to pick up on them. So that's much appreciated. Hopefully we can keep that trend going and maybe more awareness can be spread about my nips. Anyway, Jacqueline saying possibly he would upset he loved his drink when he was 3. I was just referring to Brenner, some sort of negotiating aside from a plea deal in which maybe could have a lesser sentence and let out down the line. If that was taken off the table but a bit of alcohol was replaced, maybe Brenner would choose that. Though, of course, the US, the way the rules are, the strictness and all that, they'd probably say it's not possible whatsoever, not allowed, not prohibited. But, you know, thinking outside of the box, it could work, nevertheless. Apple MX. I think it'd be cool if you tried the US pronunciation of Candice in your next video. Candice instead of Candice. Okay, but I do like it when you say Candice. I laugh inside a little every time. Now, I say Candice Cooley. I don't say Candice Cooley. If I was to say Candice Cooley, that would be with a K-A-H-N, like they've converted to a different religion. I've just said Candice because that's literally how it's said all around in the UK at least, and whatever. Candice, you know, it just doesn't feel right. It's like saying Utah, Candice, Utah. I don't like it. It feels uncomfortable. It feels weird, like alien to me. You get what I'm saying? I like saying Utah. It sounds better. It sounds right. And Candice, yeah. Candice, if it was spelt like that, Candice, then I would say it like that. Does that make sense? Well, you know, feel free to pick up if I say anything else in dodgy ways. You know, it's kind of funny. Glenn, I'm shocked and disheartened. Right. Pack and Go, Jimmy Crack Corn, great one. So you wonder, what does Jimmy Crack Corn mean? No, that doesn't mean Matt Lingo, you get the guitar out, because Stone Cold will probably crush it on the ground. Kurt Angle wouldn't be happy, a little teardrop from his eye. But no, Jimmy Crack Corn is a reference to either Jim Terry or Mr. X. It was mentioned by a viewer in the last video that made that reference. Just so you understand, Betty Hayward, what does Betty Hayward say? Okay, I'm sorry I missed some of the show today. I'm catching up with it all now. I just heard the story that was written about who wrote that? It couldn't have been him. The other day he was looking at a painting that someone painted of Jim, X and me, and he was comparing our noses using a painting that was abstract. Who wrote this? There's no way he wrote it himself. Wow. Ryu, I'm sad I missed the entire story live, but this is good stuff for sure. It's not only the story you missed the belt as well, Betty Hayward. Maybe in time, Betty Hayward, you might need to buckle yourself up. Oh yeah. But, yeah, most likely it was Pancakes that wrote the story about me yesterday, as the day before I did a video about him looking at the GoFundMe, looking at it in a balanced way. But obviously Pancakes isn't balanced, nor is his marble collection. I think he's lost a few, must have a hole in the bag. But there you go, it is what it is. So it was more of like a reacting back. And he's got his own website, Pancakes. Pancakes called out Jim Terry, Mr. X, in the past for having websites or dodgy, suspicious websites, whatever. And there you go, Pancakes has got a website now of his own. You see that trend going. The likes of Lance Kelly called out in the past for setting up a GoFundMe. And Pancakes called, Lance Kelly out, along with many other people. And in more and so recent time, Pancakes has created a GoFundMe. You think way back in the past, Pancakes was one of the first ones calling out Jim Terry, Lance Kelly for the PayPal, for the Cash App, for the Venmo. And then fast forward a little bit, Pancakes implemented those features himself. So you see a pattern of complain, call someone out for doing a certain thing, a certain action, and then almost mirror that action, that behavior by the individual you called out at a later point. Kind of makes you a bit of a hypocrite, right? Though, is it a surprise in general? Not really. But yeah, it is what it is. But Betty Hayward, Betty, keep up. Shout out to Betty. There was, I don't need to share it in this one because we're trying to keep it serious with this video for most part of it. But everyone in the chat, be sure to check out my community post on my channel, one of the latest ones. It's very interesting and it's regarding Betty Hayward, so don't miss out on it. go onto my community tab page and check one of my latest posts. You will see it. It will stand out to you. Okay? So it appears we have reached the end of the comments. Pretty quick. Now we can move on to the latest news article transcript of Dylan Rounds and Dylan Rounds' anniversary legacy. Let's head on over. So the title of this new article by Fox 13 News, I believe, yes, is titled Family Reflects on 1 year anniversary of Dylan Rounds' disappearance. So we will read through this. There was a video of this on YouTube, but it's very short, so we might as well look at the transcript, word for word, what's said, and make sense of it. See if there's any contradictions or information you may have never heard of. So it starts off to say, Box Elder County, Utah, it's been officially 1 year since 19-year-old Dylan Rounds disappeared from Lucin, Utah. Since then, a man has been charged for his murder, but Round's body has yet to be found. That's true. The only thing that's missing here, aside from it saying a man has been charged for his murder, it should also say charged as well for the desecration of Dylan Rounds. It's missing that key detail out because that is another charge towards Brenner. As well, as you can see, it says a man has been charged. Very vague wording. If you read it for the first time or you're kind of out of the loop and saw that a man has been charged, you might suddenly think, oh, new article, a person's been charged, who else could it be? This is referring to James Brenner, who was officially charged 3rd of March 2023, okay? This is what I mean. I don't like it when these articles are a little bit vague because it can confuse some people down the line. Anyway, let's begin reading on. It says, Rounds moved to Lucin last year to pursue his dream of being a farmer. Tuesday marked 1 year when his mother, Candice Cooley, called law enforcement to report him missing. Was it a Tuesday? I'm just trying to think. Maybe because the dates are slightly shifted around compared to how it was last year. I think that checks out. In quotes, Candice Cooley says, it was just that gut feeling that you knew. What? Knew something was wrong. I guess that's what Candice Cooley is referring to. Because as Candice Cooley worded in previous interviews, she was going on about how when Dylan Rounds didn't call back, it seemed a bit odd, a bit weird because he would always call back. And Candice Cooley first confirmed with other family members if anyone else heard from Dylan. And because all were in agreement, consensus, that no one heard from Dylan, no calls, no replies, responses, especially the grandmother, in which Dylan called her and said he was going to reply back later, and yet never did. That's what really got the catalyst, going, that suspicion, that worry, and triggered him to go down to check. It says, the last time Dylan Rounds contacted his family was May 28th, 2022. Yes, the grandmother, Karen Rounds, 28th of May 2022 at 6:51 a.m. just outside of the gate, or should say near to the gate. As if Dylan was approaching the Grangehead property. Okay. Since then, Cooley has never given up the search for a son in the desolate lands of western Utah. In quotes, you've got to have an answer. When you have an answer, you can start to process. Until you have an answer, you can't process it, said Candice Cooley. They had an opportunity to get an answer, though Candice Justin recently said they probably wouldn't be satisfied with it. Fox 13 News was in Lucin with the family the first week of June. Back then, they first suspected foul play. And one of the factors which triggered the feeling and thought of foul play was Dylan's boots near the dirt mound, which had a little droplet of blood on one of the shoes. That's what Candice Cooley was thinking at the time. Recent stories, top videos. Right. In quotes, We have just been making check marks. We take our radius, and one step at a time we can take this off the board, she said. And speaking of check marks, Candice Cooley did name some key locations which have been checked off the list. That includes Lucin Pond, the main line, the grain shed. Anywhere else? Dylan's farm as well. That's what they said, okay? Now, it does make me double think. If Candice Cooley is saying that those areas have been ticked off the list, the checklist, that it doesn't need to be checked anymore because they've been around so long in that area and spent so much time, as Justin Round said, then why on the 21st of May 2023, a couple of weeks ago now, why was Candice Cooley and some others nearby the area stood around near the vehicles? What were they doing near the pond? And why was a sheriff near the pond 1 hour before Candice Cooley got there? Because there was a witness at Lucin Pond that saw it all happen and was wondering what it was all about. The witness left a question on one of the Find Dylan Round's Facebook post from 8 months ago. Candice Cooley must have saw it, responded back and said, yes, that was us, but it's got nothing to do with Dylan Round's legacy or anniversary. So it makes you think, well, if it's not to do with the anniversary, what is it about? Searching for Dylan? Possibly. But why the pond? Why the pond if they said they've checked it off the list? Well, to be honest, the 21st of May, the visit down there occurred before the latest, newest East Idaho News Channel interview. So it could coincide with that. And then saying, we finally checked it off the list. But Candice Cooley did say that they went down to the pond or somewhere around there on a Wednesday. Yeah, what Wednesday? I've thrown that into the mix. A little bit random, but I just wanted to point these things out, what we've heard of recently, because no one else on YouTube would be talking about this because no one would know about it. The same with Justin Round's recent call out towards Don Hately. Almost no one would know about it because the post has been deleted ever since, though on my channel it was documented at the right place at the right time with the right people present. Okay, let's move on. In the article, it continues to say, Round's case has baffled the nation. Many have pooled together resources and high tech to try and find him, including the Diesel brothers back in October. Yes, the Diesel brothers came down back then, October 2022, with the full spectral drone, which was, raised money to be able to afford it, take it down to the area, use Diesel brothers being able to pilot it successfully, take photos of the area and send that data back to Texas Equisearch, who weren't in the area at the time, for them to run the photos through their software to check for soil disturbance and anything else of interest. Both Candice Cooley and Justin Rounds never got back to us, never provided an update. We never knew what happened to those photos being analysed, if it did reveal new leads, places of interest. We never knew. Will we ever know? Probably not. Does it make you think, right? These little subsections which might not be of 100% interest, it might not 100% reveal the location of Dylan, but why can't it just be talked about? So it, kind of ties up a loose end. Because when some stories and events go untouched, they do fade away. Though for a few people that remember of them, it kind of turns into a bit of a mystery. And do you want mystery on top of a missing person case, where there already is a mystery of trying to find the person, Dylan Rounds? You don't want that. You want it to be as simple as possible. And I know some people could say, ironic, it's been far from it in the Dylan Rounds case, but still, if there are ways to be able to limit the confusion, that's what you try and do. Some people out there in this case haven't done that. Anyway, says small towns sold sunflower seeds in their country stores for Round's birthday. The flower is now a symbol of the missing young farmer. True. To be honest, it's been a symbol almost since day one, right? Even before Dylan's legacy was actually introduced. And yeah, it's kind of fitting, right? To farming, nature at the same time, what Dylan was into. It says in quotes, it's been truly amazing for that amount of people to rally around a kid they just know through photos, pictures, says Candice Cooley. And, it's quite telling because you look at the Find Dylan Rounds Facebook page, I believe there's about 15,000+ people who have joined. Now, you look at the Aidan Clune Facebook page to do with him, significantly less. Could be about 8,000 to 9,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, just a rough guess. Says, in March, a squatter who lived near Dylan Round's property was charged with aggravated murder and desecration of a body. Okay, so now it's actually including the desecration charge. That's good. Though, and it does say March, that is correct, but it fails to say the 3rd of March 2023. They've missed out the number 3, the 3rd day of March. Now, as you see, it says a squatter who lived near Round's property. First of all, this squatter, who is Brenner, still failing to mention the name Jim Brenner. Okay, it mentions it a bit below, but still, it's a bit vague, right? And to be honest, Brenner didn't exactly live near to Dylan's farm. There's about a 5-mile distance between the two, so I wouldn't say near to one another. You get what I'm saying? As well, interesting how all of these official articles, news reports, and anything said by Candice Cooley, I believe, and besides Candice Cooley, what the news articles say is that Brenner was squatting. And yet several people, just viewers on the YouTube platform, believe that Brenner was living near the Grangeshed property. So although it's not the most, defining point of the case, why is there a divide between the authority and the media groups and Candice Cooley and the family that say that Brenner was squatting on the land, and then you've got everybody else saying that Brenner was put there as like a caretaker and was allowed to live there and wasn't squatting? Why is it worded like this? Can anyone explain? We'll do a poll right now. The poll can be, based off how it's worded over time, what do you believe to be true? Do you believe that Brenner was squatting on the land near the Grangeshed property? Or did he have every right to be there and to live there? Pick which one you strongly believe in. If you don't know, there can be a section saying, I don't know. Make sure to vote right now. Property charged. Okay, let's move on. Investigators allegedly found Round's bloody boots on 59-year-old James Brenner's property. It's worded a little bit dodgy here. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but were the boots found on Brenner's property? It's just because you've got like a collection of parcels of land within that area owned by different people, but is it owned collectively as well? So maybe you could say on Brenner's property. I think it would have been better if it was just worded as near to the Grangeshed property the boots were found, to be honest. The way it says bloody boots seems to imply that there was blood on both boots, but only one, a small droplet. It kind of exaggerates here, okay? What else does it say? They also found a time-lapse video of Brenner covered in blood cleaning a gun at the time of the disappearance. Very vague, poorly worded. It says Brenner covered in blood. They make it sound like really, really bad. But basically, Brenner had blood on his arms, hand, and so much on his top. And that was about it, okay? Slightly exaggerated. As well, it fails to mention the timestamp of the phone recording and when it exactly happened. So it all happened on the 28th of May 2022, okay? This time-lapse video of Brenner from Dylan Round's phone, which was collected from the digital forensic deep dive afterwards from retrieving it from the pond, June 18th, 2022. The timestamp of this time-lapse video of Brenner cleaning a gun and having Dylan's blood on him was at 7:27 a.m. Okay? So shortly afterwards, after Dylan's been killed. But it all happened in a short span of time, from Dylan being at the gate at 6:51 a.m, making a call to the grandmother, followed by 6:58 a.m, trying to make a call to Brenner, not getting through, flattening the gate down, going down to the area, next timestamp of Dylan's phone, 7:03, whatever happens from there on, all the way up to 7:27, time-lapse video, once Dylan's been killed. Okay? What else do we have here? In quotes, if you'd have heard his voice in that first courtroom, a voice tells everything, she said. Okay. Interesting quote that. I don't think I've seen or heard that one before. For Round's family, there's no justice or peace of mind until Rounds is finally found. Fair enough. In quotes, you don't want to do a memorial, you don't want to do anything until you have answers, so you just stay recluse and get through the weekend, and that's what all of us did, said Cooley. It was easier to not deal with people. I think that's to do with the early days, what she's talking about, because as time's gone on, Candice Cooley, as well as Justin here and there, have reached out more than ever, whether it be the odd YouTuber, okay, like Doug, or these events coming up with Ron's, whatever, the barbecue cook-off, and the proceeds going to the K9 unit, which has volunteered in helping find or attempt to find Dylan Rounds and others in between. So the quote where it says, if you'd had heard his voice in that first courtroom, a voice tells everything, she said. So what? The voice tells you that Brenner is guilty? In what way? Brenner appearing nervous, trembling with his voice, looking guilty, sounding guilty? Or do you mean Brenner being very cold, emotionless, which highlights potential psychopath? And if it's a psychopath, then it could be, it could be responsible for Dylan being taken out. Which way does Candice Cooley mean? And which courtroom hearing are we talking about? The 24th of April, 2023? Where Candice Cooley said Brenner was talking with confidence, have a loud voice. He didn't appear ill. He was confident. He wasn't quiet, right? Was it that one this quote is referring to? Or the court hearing way back at the start where all of Brenner's previous crimes were read off for the first time, and that's where we heard about it? Which one is Candice Cooley's referring to? Let me know your thoughts. Which one? Is that it? Okay. So, to be honest, very short. Few exaggerations. Some very important missing stats, dates, etc. like that. So, yeah, the article isn't the best, but it was necessary to read over, to correct and add in key points, so that when people do come along this video and see this article, they know what is what. Let me know your thoughts if you picked up on any inaccuracies, contradictions made here, which I didn't pick up on, and leave it down below in the comment section or live chat. If we just put aside the Dylan Rounds case now, and we transition onto the next true crime ongoing case with Idaho 4, Bryan Kohberger. We look at the latest news articles in recent time. One of them is to do with social media connections to do with Bryan Kohberger, whether it be social media post or activity online. We'll look at that article first, try and understand better. Then there is also an additional new article, newer, which is one of the victims' families wants to see Bryan Kohberger put in the firing squad line. So death penalty, a form of the death penalty, right? And then we do have another article as well, which we'll link in with that. And maybe we can compare, contrast with the Dylan Rounds situation of Brenner receiving or not receiving the death penalty and how it can differ from one another based on the different states. As said, as we do go along, be sure to add your own thoughts in with the Idaho 4 case and also understand that I am not an expert on it simply because I've not looked really into it, okay? Then, I just read what's present, right? I'm simply reading what's present. If I can analyse, add my own additional thoughts in, I will. If there are mistakes made in the article, I'm not likely to pick up on it because I've not looked much into this case, right? It is what it is. I think one thing to acknowledge, you got to start somewhere in these, cases. If you start from the very beginning and start making videos about it, people are going to say, oh, old news, why are you so behind? Why are you going backwards? Progress has already been made. I don't want to really do that. That's why I'm jumping right into the deep end now. I have covered the odd Idaho 4 case video in the past, right? Maybe one or two. Feel free to check them out if you want a little catch up on them. I think one of them was maybe looking at the area of where it happened. And then the other one, I guess, was looking at a timeline, I believe. Now, my question is, because I do actually have a question, once the Idaho 4 case has been resolved completely and, all has been done, full justice received, whatever, right? On Google Earth, and I think it's only on Google Earth, the Idaho 4 student's house is blurred out, right? When will it be unblurred? How many years will it take? Is it so, you can look at the house and see what's going on? No, I don't mean like that. I just mean when it comes to moments where it be sensitive to do with a case or not, blurred for a reason, how long does it remain blurred for out of interest? Forever? Or, past time on, does it eventually show up again? If anyone knows, feel free to explain. Has it happened in the past with other cases where on Google Earth, maybe maps, it's been blurred out, but then down the line, it's been unblurred because the case has been resolved? Just let me know your thoughts. I want to know. And maybe the next time, whenever it is, there is new updated satellite imagery of the place, and if it's in the future, then maybe it won't be censored. Just these little questions I have here and there. If anyone can answer them, feel free to in the chat, okay? So, a couple of different articles to look at, some interesting ones and new relevant too. We'll begin first with that social media connection one, see what that's all about, to do with Bryan Kohberger, the one responsible for the Idaho 4 murder. So the title of this article saying investigators probe Bryan Kohberger's social media in connection with the Idaho College murders. This is by ABC News. Additional phone records are also included in the search warrant. On screen there is Bryan Kohberger. You can see his facial expressions, his eyes locked onto whoever is there. Pretty serious, you could say emotionless too. Newly released videos in Idaho College murders. In one of the police videos, Bryan Kohberger, investigators are probing the digital footprint of Bryan Kohberger, the suspect accused of killing 4 Idaho College students in an early morning attack last year, according to new court documents. So, is it correct in calling Bryan Kohberger a suspect? Is that because he's not been officially charged, like how Jim Brenner has been in the Dylan Rounds case? Can anyone confirm that? Is that correct, what I said then? I only asked that because, as you know, I've not followed this case, but I'm confident one of you will know. What else do we have here? The documents include search warrant applications for some of Kohberger's internet activity and some additional phone records, as well as some of the 4 victims' social media accounts. There is probable cause to believe that those records could yield evidence regarding the November killings of Kaylee Goncalves, Zana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, and Madison Mogan at the girls' off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho, the documents say. So when it's going on about internet activity, phone records, social media accounts, is that hinting at that Bryan Kohberger may have stalked these people online or checked up their social media profiles, maybe on Facebook, Twitter, to monitor activity, what's going on, look at the photos shared about them? Is that what it means? Anyone confirm? Does anyone disagree? It's saying, though they do not reveal details of what the warrants obtained, the records indicate that prosecutors have launched an expensive examination of Kohberger's activities online as they probe the suspect's possible connection to the victims and the crimes he is accused of committing. Right, so like a deep dive, not revealed the details yet. Okay. I mean, what will they find? Anything dark, anything very suspicious, incriminating, watch time hours spent on certain websites or profiles, searching up how to do this, how to dispose of someone, or best methods. I don't know, that could be considered suspicious activity online, especially when tied with a case like this. There he is again, in his orange overalls. Look at his face. I mean, you know, looking at his facial expressions, just like first glance, without knowing him being tied with a case, you could say he looks kind of intimidating. He looks a bit cold, almost has like presence of a psychopath if you didn't really know who he was or what he's been responsible for, supposedly. Give a caption there. Bryan Kohberger enters the courtroom for his arraignment hearing in Latar County District Court, May 22nd, 2023 in Moscow, Idaho. So some time has passed since then. In quotes, the case has only just begun once you make an arrest, said Robert Boyce, an ABC News contributor and retired chief of detectives in the New York Police Department. You want to see what he was looking up. You want to know what he was saying, whether under his or under an assumed name on those platforms. That's true. You know, you could have created an alternative account, changed username, may have even tried changing the location, or maybe even using a VPN to be a bit more anonymous. You never know. It can happen. You know, like on TikTok, if you have an account and you turn this setting on and that setting on, when you view someone's profile, that profile will be notified that you visited their page and vice versa. Situations like that, I don't know if they apply to other social media platforms, but if so, Kohberger may have wanted to remain, like, lay low and create a different account. So, not that suspicion would be created at the time, but down the line, that digital footprint is slightly more concealed. Now, anyone in the chat right now, do you feel Kohberger remained undetected online quite well, or do you think he has left a significant trace behind which will incriminate him massively? What's your thoughts about that? Let me know. Says they want to establish his state of mind, who he talks to and what he talks about. Boyce said there could be probative materials there. Yeah, you know, if there are some forums out there, chat rooms, 4chan, 8chan, other places, discussion boards about certain topics, subjects, maybe Kohberger was present on one of them. Maybe Kohberger may have been a mod on a website in the past. You never know, because it has happened in the past. more so with mass shooters from the US at times. Someone going on to 4chan, the message board, saying, oh, I'm fed up, I'm going to do this on this date, this month, this year. Check the news on that day and watch me do what I do. People say, oh, that's BS. Stop messing about. We know you're lying. BS. The day comes, it happens, it's on the news, and people are like, oh, damn. So then when there might be some kind of investigation underway, or just simply people online investigating, researching, they end up coming across these post before disaster. I think that's what they call it. Could the same happen here with Kohberger? I don't know, personally. And as well, if he was connecting with other online personas, other people on there, were those people aware of what Kohberger was capable of? Did Kohberger ever reveal any secrets or plans he had? And if that was the case, could any of those online individuals friends with Kohberger act as a witness or pass on what they've heard? Could be helpful, unless those people online are just as bad as Kohberger. Then they probably are going to lay low. What else is here? The Latah County Prosecutor's Office leading the case against Kohberger did not reply to request from ABC News for comment. Kohberger, 28 years of age, was indicted last month on charges including 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. At his arraignment last week, Kohberger declined to offer a plea, so the judge entered a not guilty plea on his behalf. Declining to offer a plea. Fair enough. Interesting. Kohberger, 28. I mean, when you look at Kohberger, does he look like he's 28 years old? I'd say he looks like late 30s, approaching 40 years old. I don't know if it's his face, expressions, or his hairstyle. He does look older than 28, in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts down below. Right, indicted last month on charges. Right. It says a trial date was set for October 2nd. What, October 2nd, 2023? 2022? I don't know, because it doesn't give it now. It says, prosecutors allege that in the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, Kohberger, a PhD student at Washington State University's Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology, broke into an off-campus home and stabbed to death 4 University of Idaho students: Ethan Chapin, 20 years old, Madison Mogan, 21 years old, Sana Knodel, 20 years old, and Kaylee Gonzalez, 21 years old. After more than 6-week hunt, police zeroed in on Kohberger as a suspect, tracking his white Hyundai Elantra cell phone signal data and recovering what authorities say was his DNA on a knife sheath found next to one of the victims' bodies. According to court documents, he was arrested on December 30th in Pennsylvania after driving cross-country to spend the holidays at his family home in Albrightsville, PA. Okay, so that appears... Is that the actual place where it happened? Taped off? It's weird because I'm sure there was a building next to it on the right. It might just be the camera angle there. It must be the camera angle. It's only because there was a building nearby that was blurred out. It confused me slightly. What's the caption? In this November 13th, 2022, file photo, the home where 4 University of Idaho students were found dead is shown in Moscow, Idaho. Angela Palermo, Idaho statesman via TNS via... Okay. The murder weapon has not been recovered, authorities have said. Among the new documents are search warrant applications for Kohberger's accounts on Reddit, Google, and TikTok, as well as the 4 victims' Snapchat accounts and additional records from AT&T. Investigators obtained information from the suspect's Reddit account this spring, including his public post and private messages with other users. Saved files and photos and location data court documents show. So he's been on a range of different stuff. TikTok, I'm surprised in a way because TikTok is a bit of a degenerative platform. Didn't think Kohberger would be into that type of stuff, but as for Reddit, I kind of understand that because Reddit, all kinds of discussions take place there, both degenerative and formal, whether it be about psychology, whether it be about crime, whether it be about the world, humans, gaming, films. It could be anything, right? It can be positive, it can be negative, it can be toxic. Anything can happen on Reddit. Maybe a lot of anonymous people, but also some that may stand out. Which one was Kohberger? Not quite sure at the moment. It says, investigators obtained information from the suspect's Reddit account this spring. Oh yeah, I read that. Investigators had also previously obtained records from Kaylee Goncalves' Reddit account. Earlier court filings show in the affidavit for Kohberger's arrest. Get off. Why does it do that, idiot? Arrest. Officials noted he had previously posted a Reddit survey which asked for participants to provide information to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. Well, isn't that kind of a coincidence there, right? Yeah, exactly. From Kohberger's Google account, investigators, according to the new filings, have also pulled extensive records, emails, including drafts and trash, hangouts and chats, including photos, his Google Drive, including documents, spreadsheets, presentations, files, and associated metadata. The warrant also obtained information about his search and browsing history, calendar events and contacts, Google Play purchases, along with his Google Pay transactions, court documents show. You want to develop a profile of him in your case, sometimes a psychological profile, Boyce said. That's true. You look at the person's behaviour, monitor it in person, that'll only give you so much. Ask questions, that'll only get you so far. Kohberger doesn't seem like the type to really open up, right? Keep quiet. So you look elsewhere, you look backwards at online activity. Person's behaviour, personality can be mirrored by what they look at online. Same with when it comes to music playlist. A music playlist might have a theme which represents how that person is feeling at a point in time. So the same with overall holistic online internet activity, whether it be certain communities they join and engage in, whether it be certain comments made which could hint at something bad. It could suggest what they're going to do. I mean, that bit about that, what was that? Where's it gone now? That was it Reddit? Reddit survey asking participants to provide information to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. It's almost, you wouldn't know at the time, but when you look back now, it's kind of, for some reason, foreshadowing what would happen down the line. But I said you wouldn't know back then. Anything else? They want to put a knife in that sheath because they don't have it right now. So you want to see if he bought it somewhere online. You're looking at credit card receipts, he added. The more evidence you can put before a judge, the better you've got. Investigators also obtained additional AT&T records for a subscriber unknown at this time, for the specific time period of June 23rd, 2022 to August the 1st, 2022, including any messages, records, files, logs, or information that have been deleted but are still available, including cell tower pings that transmitted outgoing and incoming calls. So, seems to be a lot going on, all kinds of material all over. You compare it to the Dylan Rounds case and evidence there. There's a big difference between the two. The Idaho 4 one seems to be like kind of more rich in potential evidence that can be collected and analysed with time. But where it says AT&T records for a subscriber unknown at this time, what did it mean by subscriber? Subscriber of AT&T or a YouTube subscriber? I don't know. Does it mean a subscriber to a service provider, a phone one, maybe? Has anyone, I know it sounds a bit weird this, but considering this guy Kohberger has had a presence online, is there anyone in the chat, in the comments, watching right now that has actually come across Kohberger online in the past, unaware of what he was going to do in the future? Has anyone come across him? It's kind of weird to think that. Also, it's kind of weird to think that if he is into true crime and all of that stuff, did he watch or follow any channels out there in the past? I don't know. What do you think? What else do we have here? Right. Looked through all that. Investigators previously used cell tower data to link Kohberger to the killings. Crime scene court documents show. Cell tower data. Kind of like how they're done with the Dylan Rounds case. Cell tower data of James Brenner with Dylan Rounds. Right, it says records from Strava and an internet service which allows users to track their physical exercise and share their performance on social networks were also obtained, filings show, including biometric information like exercise data, session logs, geolocation data, contacts and photos. Names and accounts obtained were redacted, but the search warrant application says there is information related to the investigation into the students' killings. Records related to the 4 victims' Snapchat accounts were also obtained according to the documents, including communications or other messages sent or received by the accounts, logs of previous snaps, stories and chats, and all records pertaining to communications between Snapchat and any person regarding the user or the user's Snapchat accounts, including contacts with support services and all records of actions taken, including suspensions of accounts. Is that it? Finally, to round this off in quotes, there's a lot to this case technology-wise. It's an evolving and changing field, but it's the best evidence you have because it's irrefutable, unbiased, human error-free. Boy said, it may not be one knockout punch, there could be overwhelming circumstantial evidence. That's very true what this individual has said. Based on technology, whether it be the use of cameras, CCTV, like we saw in the early days of this case, where people were at times, timestamps given, phone records, any cameras within the area too, online behaviour, tracking, all that. Yeah, it can definitely bring in a lot of evidence. It could be small bitty stuff, but a lot of it can build up and maybe used in a case. And maybe the more evidence, more of that, then when these court cases are going on, it could last longer. I don't know how long it will go on for, if anyone, does know. But yeah, that's it for this article. I think we should move on. Before we continue any further with the next article, I just want to highlight that maybe some people will say this is old news or already heard of this, already heard of that before. Well, in terms of the article, when it was posted, it was 11 hours ago, so it is new. One thing what articles do at times is refer to previous findings, previous news. You would have seen it within the Dylan Rounds case, most definitely Kenny Veach with the little articles they've done here and there. There will be maybe a fair few reference points made over time. What tends to happen is new information is right at the top and then maybe below it, it's referencing older stuff. But it's all new to me because I'm looking at it for the first time and maybe it will be new to you. So hopefully you can learn some stuff as we go along. What I also do want to highlight is maybe to a fair few people out there who may not know this case, and it might be hard to process or to try and understand what is going on. If you do feel a little bit confused, You don't need to worry. It's under control. And why? Because I'm in the same position, because I'm looking at this for the first time, right? I mainly focus on Dylan Rounds, Kenny Veach. I'm just looking at something in between just to see how things are going, okay? Does that mean I will face resistance in the comments from the Idaho 4 community and whoever comes from there? Yeah, I mean, it could be like the gates of hell. You open it up and you don't know what will come on through that portal, or maybe it turns out positive. Time will tell, of course, but always be prepared for resistance, always be prepared for new faces coming on in who may not be from the Dylan Rounds case. They may have a different type of personality traits, they might have different attitudes, they might have different resistance levels. You never know. It's like uncharted territory, okay? It's humans at the end of the day, you know, no surprise. So with that all in mind, that little caution added in, we'll move on to the next latest article, and it's to do with one of the victims' family wanting the death penalty put on Kohberger. Now, you think back to the Dylan Rounds case, there is a link because the Dylan Rounds family also want death penalty to be put on the criminal, the one who's been charged, which is Brenner. In that case, though, it seems like it has, you know, faded away, that possibility with it being taken off the table from that last court hearing we heard. But as for Bryan Kohberger, it still seems like there is a possible chance, right? Now, as for the death penalty in different states, I'm aware some of you will already know, but we will get into the laws or some news article around the laws later on. So just be patient. Let's first take a look at this article from one of the victims' family's point of view and see where things stand at this moment in time with Bryan Kohberger. The title of this article reads, "Family of Idaho murder victim Kaylee Goncalves wants killer Bryan Kohberger to face a firing squad." So it's interesting how in this occasion it's specifically listing the type of death penalty, unlike the Dylan Rounds case. Then again, it depends what type of death penalties are allowed in different states, right? I guess the photo on the left is of Kaylee Goncalves, and on the right, Bryan. Once again, you look at that facial expression from Bryan. Would you say that's emotionless? Would you say that's the face of a psychopath? Let me know your thoughts. You know, first-time impressions if you came across this individual without knowing his background and the whole case. And then that seems to be the family, bottom left screen. Says, after revealing that they want alleged Idaho student murderer Bryan Kohberger to receive the death penalty, the family of Kaylee Goncalves shared they want him to face a firing squad. Now, my question is, what do the other family victims think, right? You know, 4 students murdered. What about the 3 other families out there? Do they also want Bryan to receive the death penalty? You know, you want justice, of course, but is there any part of you in your mind where you want that individual to suffer as well? Because as for a firing squad, it doesn't sound like the type of way to suffer. If you look at this guy on the right, he doesn't look like a person who's afraid. I could be completely wrong, but, you know, if he doesn't really have too much emotion, then just killing him on the spot, is there any level of suffering? I don't know. It depends what people want. Like within the Dylan Rounds case, at least, the family want Brenner to suffer, and they felt that the death penalty was the best way to go. Now, in the Idaho 4 case, still a true crime one, just not a missing person case. Do you think the families want the same for Bryan to suffer, or do they just want him out of this world, just to be able to move on and just get rid of that darkness? Anyway, Kohberger was indicted by a grand jury earlier in May and has pleaded not guilty in connection to the November 2022 deaths of Ethan Chapin, Sana Canoodle, Madison Mogan, Kaylee. So what reads out here checks in terms of consistency with the last article we read, which is a positive. So it says, family of Kaylee Goncalves is calling for alleged killer to face a firing squad. There's Bryan again. Yep, seen all that. On a Facebook page dedicated to Kaylee and the Goncalves family, Christy Goncalves, Kaylee's mother, shared a post in support of Idaho House Bill 186. According to the post, the bill amends existing law to provide for execution by firing squad and to provide for certain requirements before an execution. Now, what are those certain requirements? Christie shared the post featuring photos of two men wearing shirts that read #Justice for Kaylee. And when we say Kaylee, we're not talking about Kaylee from the Dillon Rounds community who associates with salty pancakes. This is a different Kaylee, in case you're wondering, and spelt different too. The bill was signed by Idaho Governor Brad Little in March, adding a firing squad as an alternative method of execution when lethal injection isn't an option. Right, in March. So I think we're talking about March 2023 as for this bill being signed. So I guess you could argue good timing in a way. Idaho has become the 5th state to authorize the execution of an inmate by firing squad. Wow. So who are the other states that have execution of a firing squad? Is this talking specifically about a firing squad or about the death penalty overall? Anyone know? Does Utah fall under it? Little wrote in a statement that he supported policies allowing the state to carry out executions throughout his career. The families of the victims deserve justice for their loved ones, and the death penalty is a way to bring them peace, he wrote. Last year, Little signed House Bill 658, extending protections to suppliers and manufacturers of lethal injection drugs in the state. For the people on death row, a jury convicted them of their crimes and they were lawfully sentenced to death, wrote Little. It is the responsibility of the state of Idaho to follow the law and ensure that lawful criminal sentences are carried out. Plea for justice. Last month, the families of both Kaylee and Madison filed notices indicating their support for the death penalty. The two University of Idaho students were lifelong best friends before they were brutally dead in off-campus home they rented along with Zana. Zana's boyfriend, Ethan, was staying over the night of the murders, and two more roommates survived a shocking crime in Moscow, Idaho. We spoke with the prosecutor on the case, Mr. Thompson. He's going to meet with all the families individually and then make a decision based on that. So the Goncalves family obviously supports death penalty in this case, Shannon Gray, the Goncalves family attorney, told. Okay, so that kind of answers my earlier question about Mr. Thompson going around and seeing if it's an unanimous decision or not. They want justice for the deaths of their daughter and Maddie and Xana, and Ethan, Gray said. It's part of the process. You know, the tort claims notice that I filed is just standard procedure. That's something that has to be filed to protect the interest not only of the families but the victims and the community. Meanwhile, Gray shared that the families are looking to take legal action against the city of Moscow, Idaho, where the killings took place. Filings dated May 3rd and May 11th by the Goncalves and Mogan families revealed that they could sue the city for damages, according to documents obtained by ABC News. Do you think after this, after the Idaho 4 case, will there be an influx in maybe more cameras, CCTV being installed in the area of Moscow, Idaho, and just Idaho in general? Do you think that will happen? Will there be any new laws that come out of this? Will there be any... what do you call it? Do you like with Dillon Rounds legacy, something implemented to help people down the line and other families impacted by similar cases? Will the equivalent happen here with Idaho 4 or not? Let me know your thoughts. Gray told the outlet that they filed claims to protect families' rights to file a lawsuit in the next 2 years. Filing a tort claims notice really is just a safeguard, Gray told ABC News. It's a safeguard to protect the interest of the families, the victims, and really the whole community around, because if something goes wrong or was done improperly, then someone is held accountable for that. Similar claims have been filed with Washington State University, University of Idaho, and the Idaho State Police, Gray told ABC News. Those aren't meant to do anything other than protect the interest of the families and victims moving forwards, Gray said. Kelly's parents, Steve and Christy, during a vigil. It's not showing the photos, man. I think that was just like a little caption of a photo, but it doesn't show on her. So that's it for this article. Let's just transfer onto the other article, more about this firing squad death penalty bill implemented in recent time. So this article, called Idaho Steps Closer to Using the Firing Squad for Executions, posted on March 28th, 2023. So this is old, but it just like shows a backstory to how things came about with that bill implemented. Okay. Now, was this all heavily influenced because of the Idaho 4 case? There's a possibility, yeah. But let's just read it anyway and see what it says. Idaho will become the 5th state to authorize the firing squad as a method of execution and may become the first state to mandatorily impose it on a death row prisoner since 1976. Idaho's Governor Brad Little signed HB 186 into law on March 24, 2023, and it goes into effect on July 1st. The law gives the director of the Idaho Department of Correction up to 5 days after a death warrant is issued to determine if lethal injection is available. If it is declared unavailable, the execution will be performed by firing squad. The state will need to spend $750,000 on its facilities to enable executions by firing squad. Okay, so it says that this bill, this method, comes into effect July 1st. So there is some time still, ahead. But the way these court cases are going and the way the Bryan Kohberger's case in general, it just seems like it'll probably drag on till then. Is that what you think? It'll drag on till then? And in between, see what the other families think of, do they want lethal injection? Do they want a firing squad? Says, the state has twice stayed recent execution dates for Gerald Pizzuto Jr. because it could not obtain lethal injection drugs. Idaho House Assistant Minority Leader Lauren Necochea Du Bois, who opposed the bill, warned that it will lead to legal challenges to the constitutionality of the firing squad. This would open Idaho up to lengthy, expensive legal challenges related to the 8th Amendment, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment, even if it is towards criminals that deserve it. The South Carolina Supreme Court is considering a lower court ruling that the firing squad is unconstitutional, can't say that word, under state law. Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Utah all authorize the firing squad as a backup method of execution. Right, interesting. So that applies to Utah. So if Brenner, if it could ever happen down the line, if Brenner received the death penalty for the murder of Dylan Rounds, then, will it be by lethal injection or by the firing squad? Opens up possibilities, right? I can imagine the family would choose a firing squad because that's possibly the way Dylan was killed, so it's kind of like an eye for an eye. Yeah, interesting. Anyway, in Mississippi and Oklahoma, it is authorized if nitrogen hypoxia, lethal injection, and electrocution are held unconstitutional or are otherwise unavailable. In Utah, it is authorized if lethal injection is unavailable, but the state has not carried out an execution since 2010 when Ronnie Lee Gardner chose the firing squad for his execution. The other two uses of the firing squad since 1976 were also in Utah, with both prisoners having a choice of methods. Is that it? Yeah, that's it of that article. Just wanted to share that with you as a backstory so you might better understand just that previous article we looked at with the firing squad. Of course, if you do have any questions, additional questions, list them down below in the comments section. If for whatever reason you need to make any corrections or add on your own information or your own opinions from your point of view, make sure to do so. Would you say you're satisfied with the way this case has gone, the Idaho 4 one, or is there room for improvement? Is it any better? Has it been handled better than the Dylan Rounds case? I feel, even though I've not covered it really that much, I would say it seems like it's been handled a bit better. Similar, there has been online presence of maybe misinformation and confusion over time, and maybe a bit of toxicity in communities, possibly as highlighted by some of the news articles in the past. But I'd say within the Idaho 4 case, there's a lot more opportunity and room for the collection of evidence and data directly to do with Bryan Kohberger or other individuals, victims or witnesses, whatever, right? And obviously, the more evidence you have and opportunities, providing you're successful in getting a hold of it, and from the looks of it, they seem to be somewhat successful, more than the ones in the Dylan Rounds case. Does it speed things up? I don't know about that, but it just might seal things better for a better outcome overall and the correct level of justice issued. Though time will tell. Of course, there can always be twists and turns regardless. I would know when covering Dylan Rounds and others previous to that, okay? So I think we'll leave it there. If you do have any grievances, list it down below. As for any humans, new people that just randomly come on in, maybe from the Idaho 4 case community, before whinging, whining and moaning, just be aware I have spent almost a year covering Dylan Rounds every single day, over 300 videos covered on the case. To suddenly jump on into the Idaho 4 one this late on, I'm not going to be expected to perform like a god in terms of memory, recollection, attention, retention span, etc. Okay? I just read what's present to share to you, to spread awareness of it, and maybe to make some sense of it. I'd say it was a success because I was able to, once again, successfully make links from the Idaho 4 case to the Dylan Rounds case when it comes to the death penalty. And like how we saw just in that last article about Utah utilizing the firing squad, although maybe not often, it's there in place. So it does make you think about Brenner once again, okay? So we'll leave it there for now. We'll see what happens next and what needs to be covered next, whichever case it is. Thanks for watching, goodbye and good night for now.